it was taking what Hendrix had done and turning it up a notch or two. Different, Van Halen was a piano player, and piano players think differently than guitar players do, and so that's where some of those chord voicings and his rhythm playing came from. That's where some of that intervallic skipping that just sounds so otherworldly came from, is, training the piano. And, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was, don't just listen to me, listen to my influences. And man, it just made real sense then, because it's like, I was at this clinic and Zakk Wylde was talking about this, and he's like, don't just listen to me, listen to my influences. So, all right, who's your influences? So I went out and bought a Frank Marino album. I went out and bought, Allman Brothers, went out and got into, all this stuff that inspired him, and you kind of get a picture of, well, it's a synthesis of styles. Any of these guys like that. And a lot of it has to do with, like, the timing of when, this is coming out. A lot of it has to do with, there's somebody somewhere in this country of ours that's reinventing the electric guitar, and some of them are on YouTube, and they're not trying to do this for fame and fortune. They're doing it because they actually like music, and they're just exploring this, and trying to push the envelope. And there's, those guys they try to be innovators, and then there's guys that are cultivators. Somebody like, Eric Clapton or something like that. He's a cultivator. I don't think he's much of an innovator.
I think most would agree with you. I think he would agree with you, actually.
Like Steve Vai, he's an innovator. Allan Holdsworth was an innovator. Eddie Van Halen was an innovator. Clapton was a cultivator. He was, let's take the blues from America, which people in America don't listen to because they're too racist to listen to it. And the English thought this was great, so they took a hit of acid and played it through Marshall amps, and all of a sudden blues rock is born. And so Clapton sort of took that and expounded on it. I don't know that he really was much of an innovator as much as like I said, a cultivator of that style. Like, who's the pinnacle of this style? Obviously his name's at the top of the list. But it's also, in my mind, got to be shared by 20 other people too,
So, talking about new innovators, and as much as I sometimes bemoan modern music, which I find I do less and less as I get older, who out there right now to you is doing something that falls instead from the cultivator category to the innovator? Because there's one name that comes to my mind immediately.
Like as far as innovators now, man, there's just so many of those YouTube guys. It's like, I saw a guy the other night. He was playing "Sweet Child of Mine," but he was playing the guitar with his left hand, and then he was doing keyboards with his right hand. And it's like, that's kind of innovative. Junior Brown was innovative. Those are guys that there's no one that's going to be able to copy that exactly. Because sometimes he'll play and it sounds like, well, is he on the telly neck or is he on the steel neck? Oh, he's on the steel neck, making it sound like he's on the telly neck, making it sound like he's on the steel neck, and those guys they're pushing the envelope, I don't know, man. I kind of like, I can get something from anybody. It doesn't matter. As long as it's real and it's done with a lot of conviction, it doesn't matter. I don't have to necessarily like the kind of music to get something out of it. I just, you go through this phases, like when you're, you want to be Ace Frehley, you want to be Randy Rhoads, you want to be, whoever it is, and then, hopefully you kind of get what they're about, and then you move on to something different. In every genre of music, there's, some people leading the cutting edge, like I said, and then there's people that are cultivators. And so, I like anybody that's any good at it. If they're playing guitar nowadays and they're having any degree of success and notoriety and, are good at it, I'm all for it. Whether it's, I think that guy that played with No Doubt was good. And that's just the furthest thing that anyone would associate with me listening to any of my music. But that guy played tasty stuff. He had cool gear. He it worked with what they were doing, and it was infectious to listen to. And so, you can't take away the validity of a guy like that compared to somebody else. That's not really their thing, I think a lot of people are just hung up on one or two guys, and they try just incessantly to do that. And it's like chasing your own tail.
So, I said one, but then immediately thought of another. so I got two names that come immediately to mind for me when I think of innovative in the modern sense. And maybe you have something to say about them, maybe you haven't even heard of them, but regardless, I suggest checking them out. Would definitely be St. Vincent and what she's doing with, she composed, for her first record, she composed her solos in MIDI so that she wouldn't be thinking about guitar solos when she wrote them. And then, of course, the guys from Muse. You listen to a Muse record, and the guitar and the synth kind of get more and more, you're not sure where one starts and the other stops.
Yeah, that stuff, man. I'm trying to think what the name of that song was by them, but it was like kind of like a spaghetti western type video,
Knights of Sidonia.
Boy, that was cool. And I loved it, because my students would bring me stuff they'd want to learn or whatever, and I got exposed to a lot of music through my students, and man, everybody says, oh, there's no good music. They're just not looking. You know? I mean, most people just, they got to be took by the hand, and told what to do, told what to like, told what to listen. And, it just seems like, once you kind of break out of that mentality, just embrace everything, because, I mean, that's the name of the game, Any of the greats will tell you that, Miles Davis to Jimi Hendrix to Glenn Campbell, they'd always tell you to embrace everything, just anything that's good, and try to use it in your own way, and then throw it out on the table in a way that maybe hadn't been seen before. I mean, I've done a few of those, played a few of those tribute bands and stuff, and it's like, I wouldn't want to do it all the time. It's fun to step into those shoes and, go out there and recreate the sounds of Black Sabbath, but I wouldn't want to do it all the time. It's too confining, There's not enough latitude in there to be able to put your own stamp on it, really. You have to play like Tony Iommi when you're doing Sabbath. You have to play like ZZ, you have to play like Billy Gibbons when you're doing ZZ Top, and so the trick is take a little pinch of all of them and make up your own thing.
All right. Then we'll close up tonight. First, just, you've been an Oklahoma Tulsa Scene musician for 20 plus years now.
Mm-hmm.
So, succinctly as you can, because I'm sure we could both talk for another hour about it. The changes that you've seen between 98 when you started and 2017.
Man, there's a lot of those. I mean, the three things that I can attribute, just in Tulsa. I mean, Tulsa is not a big city. It's not a medium city. It's a small city, let's say. And so, in a small city like Tulsa, there's per capita, there's a ton of people that play. There's a ton of people that, listen to it. But it's, kind of a challenge getting them all together in the same spot sometimes. Because why? I'd say the three big things were like, when I was in high school and younger, we'd come down here and we'd go to a show at Kane's Ballroom. I remember this. We went to the Black Crowes the first tour. We saw it at Kane's Ballroom. It was $10 to get in there. And after the show, we were out of there. There was nothing down there. Nothing. There was nothing downtown. And, like all cities, Tulsa grows up and changes and other things happen. But I think, the big things are like the big shows. We get Eric Clapton, for instance. We get these big guys that before they wouldn't come to Tulsa. There wasn't anywhere big enough for them to play. And so that was a real change, and then, you got to think of it from the consumer standpoint. I mean, when you spend $800 seeing Tom Petty, you might have less than what you normally would go out and spend to support your local talent, The other thing I've seen, too, is, obviously the law. I mean, the drinking laws have gotten really strict, and, the roadblocks and stuff like that. I mean, when I first started doing this, man, I mean, it was just the way it was, People got out of hand, and now they're not going to let that happen anymore. And so you're taking a chance, and it's a new world. You can't just drive yourself around and drink like everybody used to. You got to be smart about it, or you're going to end up on a real different path of life you really don't want to be on. The other thing would be the casinos. You go out there and it ain't nothing to lose several $100s on a turn of a card or pull of a lever. And they have multiple levels of entertainment, of eating and lodging, and big name acts and stuff like that. And so those have drawn a lot of people away from the real, grassroots, local level music, And I think all those things have been a big part of it. The other thing I'd like to see come back would be like multiple dates. Some of those clubs, even, before I started playing, some of my older friends are like, man, we used to pull in this place on Tuesday and set up and play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so they'd stay in the band house, or, like when I first moved here and started playing, Elephant Run was doing 3-night gigs. And so, not only does the people know where you're playing, but the band builds up some synergy. They get the PA really dialed in the first night or two, and then, it just kind of builds up this sort of energy and, momentum that is a lot more attainable than having to go night to night a different place every time. And I don't know why they got away from that. The country bars used to do it a lot more, but even them, they've got kind of away from the Friday, Saturday night gigs, much less the, Tuesday through Saturday gig or something like that.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the bars around here are going to karaoke a lot. I mean, which, I love karaoke. I go, if we don't have a gig on Friday night, you can probably find me at the Elks Lodge up here singing karaoke. I know, I stick out like a sore fucking thumb. It's like me, Gus, and Matt, and then just white people.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
But, I love to go up there because I get to sing stuff I wouldn't normally get to sing in the band.
Right.
But at the same time, it's taken some of the space that musicians used to have.
Absolutely.
And, to be fair, the people make their own entertainment. It's a smart decision on the bar's part. I totally understand it from a business perspective.
Yeah, I do too, but, the public kind of laps up whatever's available.
Exactly.
And so the problem is, a good band that's got their act together is, they're going to want to get paid some money. And, the way things are now, the karaoke thing does work well, because a lot of times I think people might tend to drink a little more than they normally would if they know they're going to have to get up there in front of people and shake their inhibitions or whatever. But I just kind of feel like, man, it's just kind of a cheap ass way out. It's like either they can't afford a good band, or it's a cheaper alternative to a good band.
It's getting a lot better than it used to be, because I remember in high school it was not fucking possible to get paid doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when you and I first met, the fact that you guys were making a living doing this and not on the fucking cover of Rolling Stone, it just didn't equate for us. There was nothing in between.
Yeah.
Like, you either don't make anything or you make all the money.
Yeah, well, and there's, the middle, it's just like everything else, man. The middle class of everything has been shrinking. And, I never really set out to be famous. I set out to do it because I felt real strongly about music and how it made me feel and how I saw that it made other people feel. And, fame is so fleeting. It's just so fickle, and you kind of understand what the business really is and how it really goes. And, it's just like, man, I like to play, but I got a lot of experience doing it. And I kind of look at myself like a journeyman, you wouldn't ask a plumber to come do anything for free. You wouldn't ask an electrician to do anything for free. And, a lot of those jobs you can be qualified and at the top of your pay scale in 5 to 10 years. Well, I've been doing this for 20 years. We've got 20,000 hours easily in performances, recording, teaching, playing, touring, just all these things. And it's like when somebody tries to offer me to pay me below minimum wage, it's just like, you got to stand strong sometimes and just be like, look, we need this, and that's all there's to it. And I know I can't play everywhere. I know that not everywhere needs to have an experienced band that they actually pay real money, and so that's fine. But I don't I don't really like the idea of, playing for free beer doesn't pay my bills,